Hello, welcome to Flipside. Quickly about me so you know who you're watching. I have been a pro videographer for the past decade. Sometimes I work on bigger sets as a camera assistant, but most of my daily work involves shooting and editing as well as managing production. What you are watching right now is my showreel I used for a job interview a couple of years back, and today I just wanted to show you what I do when I edit a photo. So let's get into it. So I'll show you how I start editing. Let's go with this one. Okay, the first thing I do when I start editing a photo in this camera raw interface is that I look at the histogram and see where the exposures are and just sort of figure out which area is clipped and which area is not. So obviously these highlights in the leaves and the sky seeping through is clipped, which is fine. And on the shadow side, maybe just the back of this figure and not much else. That's great. I don't use all the sliders, like just some of the ones that I need, and it depends on the photo. Some photos might need more tweaking than others, and some photos may not. So yeah, really depends on what's in the frame. Let's make sure that's off. So if a photo is very underexposed or overexposed, I would start by just playing with exposure first. But in this case, the pigeons are only very slightly underexposed to my eyes. And yeah, the wrist looks okay-ish. Shadows might need some pulling back. It's a little bit too much. And the highlights, could try playing with the highlights. So there's more detail on the leaves, and hopefully you can't really see the sky, but what you can do with the highlights in a scene like this is just pull back some of the detail that's in the leaves. And then what I do after adjusting basic exposure and maybe contrast, the next thing I do is play with clarity and texture. I always feel like less is more with this slider, because what it's doing is essentially adjusting micro contrast in a scene, but it's doing it globally, so it's doing it to the whole scene in this interface. So if you do like jack it up all the way to 100, it doesn't look so nice. I mean, like, it really depends on your taste and what you like, but especially on Instagram, I feel like a lot of people overuse it without knowing what really happens to the image. But maybe they just like it, who knows. What I am aiming for with the slider in this scene is trying to pull out some of the detail on these feathers, or like the edges of these pigeons, without adding too much clutter on the leaves. So you'll see if I pull it back, it softens everything and it goes all mushy. And if I check it out the other way, it's the opposite effect. I feel about there's the sweet spot of this. So there's vibrance and saturation, which obviously adjusts how much saturation there is in the scene, but I don't know if you have noticed, but if you adjust the clarity in a certain scene, it affects the saturation. It desaturates your image basically. So we'll put that back to 22, and so you need to adjust your saturation accordingly, unless you like that desaturated look. But in this case, because I was there, I shot it, I feel like I remember the forest being very vibrant, and in this particular moment the sun was shining through, so I feel like there definitely needs to be quite a lot of color and saturation. So this might be, just make it 10 vibrance, maybe about 18, no, not minus 18. 18. Sharpening is pretty self-explanatory. It basically sharpens the edges of like whatever is in the image, at the expense of adding noise, a lot more noise. So I feel that with anything really, like less is more, especially sharpening. As soon as I check up the sharpening, you can see the noise, especially in the shadows like this. Well, it's everywhere really, the noise. You can increase the noise reduction so that a lot of these noise go away, but then you are sacrificing the detail. It becomes, don't want to say smudgy, but yeah, becomes less detailed with noise reduction. So it's about finding the balance. So yep. Also keep in mind where you want this image to be seen. So if the photo is going to be printed, it pays to look at things more carefully if it's going to be blown up. Depends on your lens and how you edit things, but you can definitely see some purple color fringing happening. It's called chromatic aberration, and the reason it happens is when there's a stark contrast in the scene. So here the sky is blown out, whereas these leaves are quite dark. But if you check this box in this under optics, it sort of help mitigate the chromatic aberration. It doesn't get rid of it completely, but you can see that it's definitely better than how it was before. So that's really me pixel peeping in this scene, because doesn't really matter in this photo. So these two birds are called kereru. They are New Zealand wood pigeons. They are quite big. I feel like they're like kind of like chickens and pigeons molded into one. When we took the shot, so we were just coming up to a place where you can sit down and sort of hear the birds. There's a water trough here, and we did not expect these two massive kiriru to be sitting on this branch right above the bench. So now I'll open just this photo in Photoshop. So all the editing that we've just done from the camera raw interface has now been moved into Photoshop with the image that we have opened. It lives as 858. So this XMP file is the file that contains all the data that you have just edited for this photo. So it's a separate file from the actual image, and you can delete this file whenever you like and just revert back to the original. Or on the other hand, you can copy this file, back it up somewhere, and also just reapply it anytime you like. The issue with this photo is that I feel like there's way too much detail everywhere. Or it's how it's gonna be in a forest full of leaves, but it just kind of takes your attention away from the main subject matter, which is these pigeons and maybe partially the figure. So what I want to do is firstly make this a layer, copy it, and just turn off the top one for now, make a new solid. Let's go with the color from the branch, just very dark. Make this very slightly more orange, and so basically this is going to act as a filter, I want to say. Soft light, screen multiply, say soft light, and so that's adjusting the blend mode. You can play around with this, but I am wanting to get darker with this filter, so I am going to use a darker blending mode. So 50. No, let's just go multiply. So obviously I'm not going to leave the filter this dark, but just for editing purposes, I'll keep it like this for now. And what I'm going to do now is just take the lasso tool and I'm just gonna check the feather looks like. We're at 16%, 180 pixels. Yep. Feels about okay. So just want to select the pigeons, but don't want to make them stand out too unnaturally. So I want to kind of get the environment that's surrounding them. Okay. And what I'm doing there is just shift to add more selection, and Alt to take away more selection. So, and delete one more time. Yeah. Immediately the pigeons are kind of in the spotlight, albeit a very unnatural spotlight because this filter is quite intense at the moment. But if you bring down the opacity of the filter that I'm using, you can adjust how much of this effect is in place. And because I want the viewer to also keep in mind that this figure is kind of gazing at them, he's actually taking a picture. He's holding the microphone with his right hand, and he's holding one-handing a camera with his left hand. But so I want the viewer sort of looking left and right there. So I want another filter. We'll just use the same color. Then polygon lasso tool this time. Just want to decrease the opacity so we see what we're doing. Huge. Make that 150. Try again. There. And then because I want the movement kind of be diagonal. Spot there. And then we'll delete. Notice the shape in the layer, and you can see that so you can obviously control this as well. So this is without the filters. So diagonal filter, and then the spot filter. So in the spot filter, I just want to add another spot on the face. And yeah, just the face. And also, one other thing I like to do when a subject is not as kind of stand out as I want is you can use the dodge tool and the burn tool, sort of shape it in a way you like. It's not so I'm not trying to change the form or alter the form, but what I'm doing is just painting it so that some spots look a little bit brighter and some spots look a little bit darker. That's all I'm doing. So just want to bring out some of these feather details. And maybe feet, parts of the wing, and you can increase the exposure if you don't like clicking multiple times. But I like to do it slowly, because so I can see what's happening over time instead of going back every time I make a mistake. So, trying to mimic where the sun is coming from. It's not really hitting him in any way, so can't really make it too strong, but Just want to make him seem a little bit more 3D, a little bit more puffy, like he actually is. Looks at the moment, he or she looks a little bit flat. Same goes for the other pigeon, other kiriru, I should say. Kiriru is such a wonderful name. I love pronouncing it. Kiriru. Sorry, I get weird when I'm editing. I have a lot of time to talk to myself when I'm editing. Whether you think that made a difference or not, yeah, makes a slight difference. And you can also use the burn tool to make stuff darker, but in this case I don't think it's necessary. And still need to adjust the filters because it's still quite heavy. Wanna say the spots should be 50, 5. Let's say 12%. Still too strong. 8. Yeah, 8 should be. 8 feels right. And layer 2, which is the diagonal filter. Let's say 5. 8. Also keep in mind these two filters will be darkening your scene considerably, especially when you start stacking up filters. So might not be a bad thing, but just keep that in mind. Yeah, say 10%. Yeah, I feel like it could do with some cropping, but what I tend to do nowadays is not crop in Photoshop, just keep the whole photo. Whenever a image is going to be uploaded to social or different platforms, unless it's a website, there's ways you can crop before you upload. It pays to leave a copy of the image that is not cropped at all, so it retains the whole image that you shot, and from that image you can derive other copies that's cropped to your liking. So that photo looks about okay for now. I will stop there for today. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe and maybe leave a comment if you would like to see more. Have a wonderful week. See ya.